and millions around the world who could not wait to see what he would come up with next. Before he put a virtual world at our fingertips.
And we call it the iPad.
Before he turned household tools into objects of desire.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
Before he changed the way we are entertained.
And you can watch it on your iPod.
Steve Jobs was a baby his parents didn't want. He was adopted by a working-class couple in Silicon Valley. And to their dismay, he dropped out of college after 6 months. But he was still curious enough to drop in on classes that interested him. And at age 20, along with buddy Steve Wozniak, he set up a workshop in his folks' garage and set out to move the power of the computer from the laboratory to your lap.
The penalty for failure for going and trying to start a company in this valley is non-existent.
That brimming confidence was validated when they launched the Macintosh.
Now I'd like to show you Macintosh in person. And in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees.
This 2005 Stanford commencement speech is the only time Jobs ever spoke publicly about the most vulnerable moments in his life, including the power struggle within Apple that forced him out of the company he founded just as he was hitting his stride.
And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over.
In his 30s, he met his wife, started another computer company called Next, and took over Pixar, changing animation forever.
My name is Woody, and this is Andy's room.
In '96, Apple bought Next, and soon Jobs was back in charge, leading a digital renaissance. He took decisive command, cutting a bloated product line to just 4 useful and artful machines, and selling them in the kind of stores no one had ever seen. Since the return of Steve Jobs, Apple stock soared more than 7,000%, turning that garage startup into a $350 billion company, second only in value to ExxonMobil. In a valley of geniuses, his myth grew to Thomas Edison meets Willy Wonka proportions, keeping his products...
Are you using that currently as your phone?
I haven't been able to because I can't take it out in public.
And his life fiercely under wraps. Not even his board knew of his battle with pancreatic cancer.
I just wanted to mention this.
And he didn't reveal he needed a liver transplant until after the procedure.
I now have the liver of a mid-20s person who died in a car crash.
But while his body grew frail in recent years, that mind, that drive, never quit.
Good morning.
A standing ovation welcomed his surprise appearance at the spring launch of the iPad 2.
We've been working on this product for a while, and I just didn't want to miss today, so thank you.
But then came this letter in August. I've always said that if there ever came a day when I could no longer meet my duties, I would be the first to let you know, he wrote. Unfortunately, that day has come. Here was a man who set out to change the way we work and play.
Everything will be portable. People want large color screens that they can put photographs on. People want motion video.
Here was a man driven anew by the clock and that burning need to build something great.
No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be. Because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It's life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
And when we come back, the men who run Disney and Google pay their respects. And Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak joins me live. That was the iPad 2 launch back in the spring. A lot of people didn't know if he could make that one. And yesterday, for all of us sitting in Cupertino for the iPhone 4S launch, we hoped against hope he could maybe surprise us again. But it was not meant to be. Welcome back to our special broadcast on the life and legacy of Steve Jobs. The year after he was fired from Apple, back in the mid-'80s, he bought a small graphics computing company from filmmaker George Lucas called Pixar. A decade and several mega hits later, Pixar was bought by Disney, bringing Jobs closer than ever to the CEO of our parent company, Bob Iger. We spoke tonight, and I wondered, how did his friend act in those light bulb moments? What was it like to watch Steve Jobs create?
Whether we were sitting in creative sessions at Pixar discussing films, or at times he invited me into Apple to show me in secret but in very excited ways some of the great new products they were designing or he was even dreaming about. It was clear to me that he had a way of seeing things that many would believe would be impossible as reality, meaning he turned these ideas into reality and believed they could be turned into reality. And he also had an uncanny way of always expecting the impossible to become possible. I've never seen anyone as dedicated to turning dreams and big ideas into actuality, into reality. He was amazing that way. More than anything for me, he was a really good friend. I had the great fortune of meeting Steve and getting to know him well over the last 6 years and becoming good friends. And it's hard to think of him in any other way. But I will say, Bill, that even in responding to your questions, first of all, it's impossible to talk about him in the past tense. This is all obviously very raw and very fresh. But it's also impossible to talk about a man who was so full of life and what was possible in the past. It's hard for me. He also he always could pull rabbits out of hats. I know that sounds trivial, but turn what many people would consider to be magic into reality. And I actually think that's how he was viewing the last months and the last years of his life. Time and time again, we saw him recover from the impossible in terms of what he was going through medically. So it's hard to imagine that he didn't pull another rabbit out of his hat. He had such an incredible way of connecting people to ideas, to entertainment, to information, of bringing things to life and to people's lives. We talk about Steve and all of his accomplishments, but I actually think he was just getting started. His ideas were so plentiful and so constant, and he was not only youthful, but just at the beginning, as I see it, not nearly close to the end.
Yeah, just think of how much more he could have given the world. After dropping out of college and wandering around India for a spell, Steve Jobs came back to Silicon Valley, started hanging out with a hardware genius, 5 years his senior, who went by the name of Woz. Before long, they co-founded a little computer startup in Jobs' bedroom, and the rest, of course, changed the world. Joining us now from Los Gatos, California, the other founding father of Apple, Steve Wozniak. Steve, thanks so much for being with us. Our condolences on the loss of your friend.
Hello, thank you for the condolences. It's tough to talk tonight.
I wonder what went through your mind when you got the news.
I was shocked. You get shocked when people die, and this was closer to like when John Lennon died or JFK or Martin Luther King. It's like, you just don't know how you're going to recover, where you're going to go from there. How is the world going to be the same without him? It was that kind. When my father died, he knew it was coming for a long time, and and Steve knew his health wasn't that good, and he would talk about it, and even if I told him, well, we're all gonna die. In other words, you can look at it positively, and his comments about death really means that you had life. That's really valid, but he would say, oh no, he was really still worried of dying. I remember when he left Apple, he was also, somehow he had a premonition in his life that he would die before he hit 40, and he had to accomplish his great things before that. So, he exceeded far more than anyone's dreams ever could be, and I hope it's sort of a way that he's looking down on Apple and hoping that, watching to make sure it goes in the right direction from here on, because that was really the center of his life.
Well, all the people, his legacy is all those people who work there, I'm sure. He'll be in their memories as a driving force every day. What memories loom largest for you? Was there a project, a joke, a fight that defines him in any way?
Well, obviously when we were young and doing the things young people do and playing pranks and driving to college, I remember one time he got a ticket, and it was in Oregon for going too slow. He was in the fast lane, but he wasn't passing. So what a legacy. I think it was his first ticket of his life, and he went back to Oregon, and they somehow they arrested him on the warrant. I had to bail him out, I think.
Is the story true that he went to an...
But when it came to discussing products, I also remember very strongly how adamant he was when Xerox PARC Center had a new type of computer that had graphics. It had things like menus and buttons you could press and hover over icons. He had and he said, we're the company that can bring this to the masses. You're making it too expensive. $50,000 is too much. We're the company that can do it for $5,000. Look what Woz did to computers. And that was like one of those dreams that it's impossible, as was being described, and nobody could think it was, and yet he really did. And yeah, at first the Macintosh was kind of expensive, didn't go over with the business crowd, got a low market share, but eventually every computer in the world was a Macintosh. So almost every computer in the world has some Steve Jobs history in it. Yeah, the influence is staggering to think about. Woz, thank you again for your memories. I could talk to you all night about this stuff, but again, we appreciate your memories. Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm very sorry for his family and also everyone else who will miss him as deeply as I will. Please give everybody in the Valley our best. In 1997, when he came back to Apple, they launched an ad campaign that seemed to play off of IBM's longtime motto, Think. Well, we think you'll agree this ad has a whole new resonance tonight.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Still to come, the incredible outpouring from all of you who think different because of Steve Jobs. Maybe even the visionary could not have imagined how the internet would be ablaze with obituaries and sadness and spontaneous tributes tonight. We're hearing so much from those marking his passing. They're called I-vigils in some places. Here's a little bit of what we're seeing.
I was just in complete shock. I just sat there like, this can't be real, because, I mean, he's gone.
I've been able to accomplish a lot of my dreams largely due to Apple products.
You've got to find what you love. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking. Don't settle.
It's just crazy. I can't believe it. So sad.
You were a wizard among muggles. Muggles being us, people who couldn't think of anything as awesome as that.
I really love Steve Jobs. He was like my man.
Good Morning America will continue a special coverage in the tribute of Steve Jobs, including Steve Jobs in your 3 words. Send them in at abcnews.com. And thank you for watching ABC News. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.